The morning the argument began, the sky over Weatherfield looked like a bruise. Low, heavy, and unable to decide whether to be rain or sorrow. The street had its ordinary noises. The clink of cups at the Rovers, an early delivery truck muttering down the lane, a dog barking at a distant gate. But inside the little terrace house where Lisa and Carla had built a life, something had been quietly unpicking for months. And now the threads were starting to run. Carla woke up with the kind of clarity that follows an argument you've been avoiding. She lay for a long time, watching the dust in the morning light, thinking of everything she had given and been asked to give in return. It wasn't a bitter ledger she kept. It was a catalogue of small absences. The missed nights when Lisa answered one more work email and slipped off into sleep with the glow of a phone on her cheek. The conversations cut short when Becky's name came up as if pronouncing it would set off a bomb. The quiet, soft defenses Lisa made for the woman who had once been the center of their shared life. Carla dressed in the white shirt she liked, the one that made her feel like someone who could take on the day. She left without fuss, because that was how she always moved when she needed to give herself space. Not dramatic, just practical. The Rovers would be waiting. Pies would need their noses. The world always demanded business, even when the heart had other plans. Lisa stared at the empty side of the bed long after Carla left. The house felt different in the morning without her presence, smaller, like a joke told without the punchline. Betsy was at school. The little girl expected a steady line between the people who loved her, and Lisa kept telling herself that she would keep that line straight no matter what it cost. Her phone buzzed with a message from work. D.I. Costello, an oddly timed request for a morning catch-up. The police life crept in, bureaucratic and urgent, and Lisa toggled it like someone walking a tightrope. The hotel reservation at Chariots had been a promise. Not the kind of grand, cinematic gesture that rewrites lives, but a simple, honest attempt to reclaim space that Becky's return had stolen. If you wanted a marriage to survive, you had to program your love into the calendar sometimes. Book the table, set the time, shut the door on the world for an hour. For Carla, the day had been a small island of hope. For Lisa, it was supposed to be a way of telling the person she loved, "You're still first." Becky had her own delicate weather to bring to the door. She came back like fog, quietly settling, then rising, always present when someone left a glass within reach. She'd arrived months ago with stories folded up like paper birds, a suitcase, and a look that made old hurts look small only until you let her open that suitcase. She coaxed her way into evenings, into babysitting gigs that doubled as performances, into little confessions that read like rehearsed lines. She was a craftswoman of intimacy, gentle touches at the elbow, a memory about a joke only Lisa would get, a way of sitting close enough that proximity became persuasion. It had been working, in the way terrible plans often do, slowly, almost politely, until the world could no longer tell where loyalty ended and habit began. When Becky stumbled, drunk in the front garden, and Lisa, who had once been her wife, and who had not the heart to leave a person exposed to the cold, brought her inside, the trap clicked. Becky knew precisely when to fall apart and precisely how to look as if she'd been robbed of everything. She knew how to make Lisa's pity an investment. She knew the exact cadence of vulnerability that unsettled someone who had a child in common with you. She made herself needed, and the house shifted. Carla called into Chariots and reached Lisa's voicemail. Her voice in that message was practical and clipped. Her patience, always the sort she kept like a ration, started to shrivel. The lunch went cold as she stared at the table for the two people who were meant to be sitting together. And when Lisa didn't answer, she shoved cash into the bill folder and left in a streak of indignation that felt, to her, like self-respect. That evening, she came home not as someone who was going to make idle threats, but as someone who would draw a line. Becky was wearing Carla's bathrobe, as if the familiar fabric could mask the audacity of the act. Betsy sat on the sofa, oblivious, painting a picture of three stick figures that suggested a truth neither adult could reliably hold. The conversation began soft and realistic, and then broke into pieces. "You stood me up for her?" Carla asked, not shouting but earning an answer that hurt the way salt does when it gets into a wound. There was anger there, yes, but what sharpened every word was disappointment. That terrible sense of not being enough. Lisa's apology was immediate, sincere in the way that made Carla's chest